So the approach or the instruction of the content-based. It is one of the approaches for teaching the second language. So for the example, like, teaching English or other languages. The focus will be on the content. So the students will get some information about a topic or about a theme. And this content will be meaningful for the students. So for example, if it is the subject matter related to the science, or let's say chemistry or mathematics, so they will focus on the content or the subject matter. And they will focus on the real world content. So the content will be connected to the real life, okay? So it's like, the product of the learning. If we go historically to the approaches of teaching or learning the language, so in 80s it was the communicative language teaching, which already we had discussed it, and they moved later on to the content-based instruction. So when we think about the content, and also when we design the curriculum from the 70s, the focus was teaching and learning the native language, the mother tongue language, the first language. That was what in mid-70s. And then historically, we had different move regarding teaching and learning the language. We had the immersion education, and then we had issues with the immigrants, okay, when they on arrival and they had some kind of programs. And then we had programs with students with limited English proficiency. That's how they call it that time. And then we had the language for specific purposes. And those kind of courses, you already had taken it in UGRU or after UGRU, the foundation. So we have for if you are from science or engineers, it's different than if you are from education or humanities. So for language for specific purposes, they have different kind of terms like, English for science and technology, for occupation, for career, and also for academic. So it's similar, when you think about the IELTS, also you have for academic and for the career or the occupational. So those just historical, thinking about the content and teaching the language and the design of the curriculum. So it was the focus on the first language, then the immersion, and then the migrant, and then student with limited English proficiency, and then the specific purposes can be for science, technology, occupation, academic purposes. So when you think about the approach, usually when you think also about the language, it's the vehicle, okay? As a teacher, you try to provide the content or information and deliver the content and the information to your students. So it's what the language as what the vehicle for that. When you think about the theory of language, any language is about what? You have a text, when you read it, is a text and discourse. And you had, I think, some terms that you learned before, like discourse analysis and all that. So it means you analyze the text. Also, you integrate the skills, reading, writing, listening, speaking, to learn a language. And at the end, the language is what? Purposeful. That means you use a language for a purpose, okay? For you, for example, to communicate with others. So based on the assumption for this approach is the focus will be on the content not only the language. So a teacher, when they teach, they will teach the content. They will focus on the language, but the focus is more on the content. So the mastery will be on the content rather than just the language. And that is different than the traditional language teaching approaches. The focus previously was what? To focus on the language, especially for, let's say, the grammar translation method. There are more like assumptions that, anyone can learn a language when they are interested in learning the language. So when you teach a content and they are interested in the content, like, will be naturally they will learn what? The language. And also when we have, some content areas, they can be the basis for learning what? The language. For example, if you are an engineer, okay, all the topics or the themes you are discussing will be related to the engineering field, but still what? You're learning a language. If you are in medical fields, also you will learn some terms, lexicons, and all that, but it will be in that field. So you are actually learning a language. And of course, you address what the student needs. Because, for example, you teach like any subject, and that's what you are doing in the university. You start study any subject, and mostly all the language of instruction is English. So you are actually learning the subject, the content, and also learning the language. So when the student needs like any kind of assistance for improving their language and understanding the content through the language, the content based is the help for that. And usually, like, the teaching will be built up on the students' previous experiences, because if they know about the topic, or if they know, like, previous vocabularies, grammars, and all linguistic aspects related to the topic, will be easier for them to continue with the learning. So those are the assumptions. When you think of the design, so we have the term incidental. So it means, like, you're learning the content, and incidentally, like, you learn what? The language. So through the content, through the whole process of the content, you can learn the language. So how that will work, it's like, a process. So you will start with, the existing English language skill. Like, your students, what is the existing language skills, and then you will start to develop and activate those skills. And then you will try to build up on the skills that are required for the students to acquire the new skills. So you build up of what they have, and then you improve that and you develop for the new skills related to the language. With that, you can, develop other skills, like it can be like academic skills related to the university, it can be study skills. And at the end, the student will understand how they can, speak the English and all that. So their knowledge will be broadened, and also their skills will be developed. So that you start from the beginning, what do they have as existing, and then you start to develop the skill that they will need in the future. When you think about the design, you can think about what? The syllabus. So the syllabus will be focused on topics or on themes. So here are some themes, like, for example, about drugs, about ecology, about professional ethics. So it depends, okay? So when you think about the design, what kind of activities will you use with your students? So the activities will be focused on, for example, if you are trying to improve a language skill or vocabulary or discourse organization related to discourse or text analysis. You might, focus on the communication or study skills, or maybe grammar, or how you synthesize like content materials. So it depends. You connect all that with the language through your content. So what will be your role as a teacher? So as a teacher, it seems like, you will have kind of two roles. So you know the content, the subject matter, and also you know the language. So both. Because you try to teach the students both, okay? The content, and through the content, the students will be learning the language. So how can you do that? What will be your responsible as a teacher? So you will select and adapt authentic materials. That's mean material that related to the real life. The focus will be also learner-centered. So the students will be responsible to do tasks and all activities. And also to keep the contents especially when you plan for the any kind of presentation, because whatever context for the content is important, because you need to connect it to the real world materials.